Hey, be sure to visit my website, www.saracarter.com, for my latest reporting and stories. And guess what? While you're there, subscribe to my email list so that we can stay in touch. That's the most important thing, stay in touch and being able to communicate. Well, guess who I'm communicating with today? I'm very excited to have my friend and New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney on the show. We will be discussing how the radical left's agenda items of open borders, lax crime policies have hurt New York and states across the country. We're going to talk about Hunter Biden, President Biden, what can be done. And guess what? She is going to have a town hall by the time you hear this. It may have already happened, may have not already happened, but with President Trump. And we're going to talk about why putting America first is most important. Why putting America first is most important. I will also share an investigation that found the Biden administration had vastly undercounted, and who is surprised by this, the number of Americans who attempted to get out of Afghanistan. I am still working on getting some folks out, and I think we may have some resolution to that this week. I'm very excited about that as well. This is a story you do not want to miss. Please, please, please stay on this. We are going to be bringing this to you. We're going to give you we're going to give you directions on how to get more involved. We're going to give you step-by-step instructions, maybe more or less, on how to get more involved with voting and election integrity and what that means to your local districts, to your counties. And, Congresswoman Tenney is going to be able to give you a lot of information on where you need to go in an effort to do that and to be more actively involved in your community so that you feel good about your elections and so that you are more actively involved as an American and in the process, right? This is an important process for all of us. It's what makes our nation so great that we have this peaceful transition of power. Please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saracarter.com. That's saracarter.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. Hey, before I get to Claudia Tenney and before I talk to you about Afghanistan, I want to tell you about a group that I truly believe is fighting the fight for us up on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C., and that is AMAC. That is the Association of Mature American Citizens. They are an organization that I am proud to have sponsor my show, and I am proud to tell you about them. By joining AMAC, you are literally taking the first steps in saving the America that you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that other group offers. But guess what? It doesn't have a leftist agenda, right? I stand with AMAC. I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. Don't forget Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join at amac.us/Carter. They really will fight the fight for you up there. You won't even have to be doing it. You will just be supporting it. And as part of a larger group, you'll have someone out there with your voice taking the fight directly to the lawmakers. It's very, very important. Look, there's this new report. And as you know, since August of last year and with what Biden did in Afghanistan by just basically turning over an entire nation with over $80 billion of military, U.S. military equipment and ISAF equipment to a terrorist organization like the Taliban. Of course, it has been horrific. We have seen the aftermath of that. We've seen Russia embolden itself and enter in Ukraine. We have very legitimate concerns about the Taliban and its capabilities and what these terrorist organizations that are still being harbored there, like Al-Qaeda and other groups, offshoots of Al-Qaeda and ISIS and foreign fighters, might be doing in that region as far as creating safe havens. And we've seen the Chinese move into Bagram. I could go on and on and on. But now we are seeing that the Biden administration also lied. And I've said this to you. I said this to you in the past in those, if you listen back to the older podcasts where I was just emotionally wiped out because we have friends that died there, my husband and I, who gave their lives fighting for our country in the U.S. military and in other agencies that have that put everything on the line to fight these terrorists and saw what the Biden administration did. And I'm not talking about we needed to stay there forever. I'm not talking about being this war hawk, and saying that we needed to be in Afghanistan forever. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is common sense, like not leaving over $80 billion of equipment in Afghanistan to the Taliban, not allowing the Taliban to take control of Kabul, of a city, while we were attempting to evacuate Americans by saying, okay, here, enemy, you go ahead and control the city while we evacuate Americans. By the way, the Haqqanis and the Taliban leadership were stunned. The Haqqanis out of Pakistan that work very closely. They're another terrorist organization that work very closely with the Taliban. We're all stunned when the United States made that gesture. They thought, what a bunch of idiots you guys are. And yes, thank you very much for handing us Kabul right now, because now we're going to find out who operated against us, what Afghan Americans were here, what Afghan people that worked with the United States are trying to leave the country. Even the State Department gave them lists. I don't know if you guys remember this. They gave them lists. So right now we have this story, this report. An investigation has found that more than 800 Americans have fled Afghanistan in the previous year since the horribly botched U.S. military withdrawal. Some of those Americans were people that Congressman Mike Garcia, I don't know if you heard our podcast. It was just the latest podcast I did prior to this one, talked about. I worked with Mike Garcia's office as well as others in Senator Tom Cotton's office and across the board in trying to find Americans, locate them and get them out through our sources in the region. I spent a lot of years of my life covering stories there of our troops as well as the Afghan people in the war zone. And so we all have our, different sources and our different connections. So we knew there were Americans there, but 800, the number is significantly more than the Biden administration had primarily claimed, a State Department spokesperson confirmed to the Daily Caller News Foundation. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said on August 30th, 2021, just as the last U.S. aircraft departed the Kabul airport, that the State Department had identified roughly only 100 Americans living in Afghanistan who wished to leave. However, a GOP House Foreign Affairs Committee report to be released Monday shows that out of the unknown number of civilians left stranded in Afghanistan after the Taliban takeover, the U.S. helped hundreds leave, Politico reported, suggesting that the Biden administration either underestimated those who would attempt to evacuate or deliberately obscured the actual numbers. And I think we're going to go to deliberately obscured here. A State Department spokesperson confirmed to the Daily Caller News Foundation on Monday that the U.S. government had directly supported the evacuation of 803 U.S. citizens since August of 2021, adding that individuals in Afghanistan periodically identified themselves as U.S. citizens wanting to depart the country. There's a lot going on here. We have left, there are still hundreds there, according to sources that I've spoken with, that have not been able to escape. There are families there that, for example, are green card holders or they have a U.S. citizenship. But let's say, for example, some of their family members are not U.S. citizens, but they're direct family members. Maybe they had a child there, or they have their wife and she didn't have her green card yet, or there is some kind of connection. And these Americans have decided, some of them, to actually stay until they can get them out, sneak them out. Others have just been abandoned. We're just abandoned. And the problem with getting out is that they have to sneak out, and they have to sneak around Taliban controlled gates like Torkham Gate and get a visa to get out. So, it's a very complicated process. I've been working all year on trying to get my sources out. And these are people who assisted journalists, assisted the U.S. government, and they are still trapped there. One of them, in fact, was captured for a short period by the Taliban and was able to escape. They've all had to go into hiding. That's why I'm not using numbers. I'm not using ages. I'm not using names. These are people that are both men and women and children that are in hiding right now, and hopefully will find their way out. And we're working on that. And I will definitely bring that story to you to you when it happens, because I'm actively involved in it and because these are people that I truly love and care about and I consider family. What does it say about the Biden administration that they're willing to throw their own countrymen under the bus for political points? What does that say about them? How do you feel about having a president and an administration that is willing to just walk away from you, walk away from American citizens who have given so much, who have spilt so much blood, right? Spilled so much blood on that land. They were asked, this is an all volunteer force. And even those that worked as interpreters or people that were in that region that were working for our intelligence agencies or our military, these are people that truly believe in the principles of our nation. I know because I was standing alongside them while I was in Afghanistan, because I watched what was happening to that country, to our country, and we would get reports, and I would sometimes get leaked reports, or friends of mine in the region in Pakistan or in Afghanistan would send me information of how Al Qaeda and other groups were planning and are still planning on targeting Western assets and our nation. So the men and women who are over there fighting, the men and women who were over there working for us, trusted our government, trusted that they would not be abandoned. But they abandoned them. They left them to die. Imagine that. There was a similar story that I worked on when ISIS had, and this was under the Obama administration, when ISIS had taken over the village and was coming in to take Shingal, up on the mountains. This is in Iraq. It borders very close to Syria. And our government knew that ISIS was going to come through, and the Yazidis were there. They were completely exposed. It's a tribe there. Their children were completely exposed. And we had sent how did they call them? They were 3 military kind of assessors, let's just say, to assess the situation on the mountain. And I was at the Blaze at the time. I think this was around 2014 or 15. And, I did a story about this. It was a video too as well, but I did a story about this. I had been approached by one of those people that had been on that mountain, and then Biden was a vice president, Obama, the president. The Obama administration had said, look, we're going to send you there. We're going to give you anything and everything you need to fight ISIS on that mountain. And you know what happened? They abandoned them on that mountain. Those military assessors were left on that mountain with the Yazidis and with the Peshmerga to fight by themselves on that mountain against ISIS. And there was bloodshed. And I don't know if you remember there were supposed to be evacs. The Yazidis were supposed to be evac'd off of the mountain, off of Sinjar Mountain. They were supposed to be taken, and then Obama came out and was like, oh, it was all taken care of. It was all fixed in the end. We were able to evacuate. It wasn't even true. They were abandoned. This is a consistent theme with the Biden and Obama administrations. Abandonment of the most important issues. You do not leave any man or woman behind. That is a principle, right, that we have to stand on. You do not leave your people behind. How is anyone ever going to trust you again? How is anyone ever going to trust us again, our nation again, if that's what we do? If that is what we do, we just leave people behind. Joe Biden's exact quote referring to American citizens was, quote unquote, we will stay until we get them all out. Folks, he is a liar. He is a liar. He is a liar, and you can call it out a million times. He is a liar. And so I have to ask, and I'm going to ask Claudia this when we get her on the show. Why is the media consistently protecting Biden? Like, what is it about him that makes him so doggone special? Like that our leftist media, I mean, they just can't get enough of Obama and Biden. At least Obama, you could bear to watch him. He was always lying, but he always had a smile on his face and a swagger, a walk, and a way of doing things. And, you know, but Biden, not even that. You have to ask yourself what's happening in our country when we turn our backs on our allies. What is going to happen if something happens with us? Who is going to come running to help us if this is who we are? If we're just if our words have no meaning or value, if we don't have any substance to what we're saying, to what we're doing, if we abandon Americans, for crying out loud, not only are we abandoning our allies, but abandoning Americans, abandoning our veterans, abandoning our warfighters that live with the demons of these wars in their mind all these years later. For what? For what? So we could just walk away and be like, yeah, we're done with that. That was good. You know, none of our warfighters made that money, right? I mean, all of those companies that were over there in Afghanistan pocketing hundreds of millions, hundreds of billions of dollars in cash. While our veterans, our military were out there fighting. Our intel agents were out there fighting. What about Michael Spam? He died in the Pink Fortress. He was the first CIA agent to die in Afghanistan. Right? What does it all mean when we don't live on principle? You have to think about that. That's a very real, I mean, it's for all of us, right? For all of us. Who are we if we don't stand up for what we believe in? Who are we if we are willing to walk away from people that are our countrymen, that have given everything to fight for us? Who are we when we have an administration that lies? We vote into office liars, that we're more worried about, mean tweets than we are about truth tellers and cleaning up our system. Sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror for everyone, I hope that this election cycle, we take a good hard look in the mirror, because I'm telling you, this is going to be the most important election of our lifetime. And in the modern political age, by far, come this November, come 2024, it's going to be about you and me and the American people standing up for what is right and doing the right thing and removing these liars, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, out of office. Get them out. You are the boss. They are not. They work for you. I can't wait to get Congresswoman Claudia Tenney on the show. But before she comes on, I want to talk to you about a really important product and a really important sponsor for the show. And that is Mike Lindell with MyPillow. I love Mike Lindell. He's a true patriot. And right now he has a sale of the year on MyPillow Precale Bed Sheets. I love them. I love them. I love them. We have them all over our house. I say this every time, but I really want you guys to try them out because you will love them too. You won't buy any other bed sheets anywhere else except for MyPillow. Queen size regular, $89.98. Now you'll get it for $39.98. You can't beat that, but you got to do it with the promo code Carter, CARTER. That's for the Precale Bed Sheets. They are breathable, cool, crisp, durable, built to last, 250 thread count plus, imported. Queen, 21 inches by 34 inches, a set with 2 pillowcases. You will get that for $39.98 if you use the promo code Carter. You guys are going to love these. Go to mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 for deep discounts on the MyPillow Precale Bed Sheets. Queen size regular, $89.98, now on sale for $39.98. And while you're there, take advantage of the buy one, get one free. Yeah, I said it. Buy one, get one free. Sale on My Pillows, towels, and so much more. Visit mypillow.com /Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 today for the sale of the year on MyPillow Precale Bed Sheets. MyPillow.com /Carter or call 1-800-685-7221. I'm so happy to have Congresswoman Claudia Tenney on with us today. Claudia, you're my friend too. I just got to be honest. I mean, we've hung out together. I have so much respect for you. You are such a fighter, back in the seat, back in the congressional seat again. And now you're fighting again to hold on to that congressional seat in New York. So great to have you on the show. And we've got so much to get into.
Well, thank you for the kind words. You're also a friend, and I just love the work you do. You're just, you are so aggressive. You're such a great investigative journalist. We don't have any of them left. There's so few that really do the work and really go to the facts. And I think this is the critical issue in our country right now. As I go around door to door, I'm getting ready for a primary tomorrow. The last primaries of the year are in New York and Florida. And as I go around, and every intern I get for every campaign I've run, they always say, people seem really uninformed. And I was a journalist. I owned a newspaper. And now being a member of Congress, we are in a self-governing constitutional republic. And Lincoln once said, it's about self-governance. Can we govern ourselves? We're at that critical point, and I think we're here again, just like in the Civil War. We have people that look to government for everything instead of self-governance, which is what's preserved in our Constitution. So my mission is always to be as honest, as forthright, and as transparent as I can be. I explain every vote that I take in detail on the House floor, and I put it out every week. It's on all my social media platforms. Actually, the votes explanations are out within an hour of every vote. And that's why it's so important to have journalists who are looking to get the facts to all of us so that we can self-govern. Because if we don't, the bureaucrats in government are going to take over our lives. And that's what you're seeing under the Democrats. That's who you see them infiltrating, whether it's infiltrating the media, our schools, our colleges, big tech, everything, and why it's so important to have people out there like you are really willing to get down and dirty. I mean, literally getting into the dirt and finding and discovering what the truth is. And I think people are looking for that instead of these polished, talking heads on TV, just kind of telling people what they think they want to hear so that they can make money. And I think what worries me the most is I think the media knows, this legacy media, they know what they're putting out isn't truthful, and they're deliberately kind of callously and calculatedly exploiting people who don't know the facts. And that's where people don't know where to turn. So we look to people like you, and that's why I explain everything as much as I possibly can. I mean, I'm totally transparent. I have people from all around the country that actually look for my vote explanations as I travel around doing, election integrity to these groups, either by Zoom or in person. Everyone's like, oh, we're already following you on your site because we don't know where to turn. How Congress.gov is too complicated. Then we got to figure out the bill. And we know you're a Republican and we know you're going to explain it. And so we go right to your site. So I literally have thousands of people following my weekly newsletter just because they want to see how I'm voting and whether the Republicans are voting right or not. I think it's really a compliment to me, but I never realized it until I get on these Zoom calls. So that's my long hello.
Well, that's right. No. I'm glad you brought it up because, we always assume, I mean, I do sometimes too, without even thinking about it, that everybody's informed about this. No, not everybody is, because the media is not doing their job anymore. And that is a real tragedy to our republic. And sometimes even when it comes to me, I'm like, don't you realize how many people are crossing the border? People will say, no, I had no idea. If they're not watching certain news channels, if they're not watching me on Fox News or watching Bill Maloogian or, getting their news from alternative media sites that are covering these issues, then they really have no clue as to what really is happening in our country. I mean, because I've seen that over and over again with, news sources that we used to trust. It was funny. I talked to people that have said, I've canceled my New York Times, I've canceled my New York Times. I want to say prescriptions. It's like it's a drug.
Yeah, well, it's the failing New York Times, remember?
It's a failing New York Times, and the Washington Post, and, they've canceled it. They've canceled those because they don't trust them anymore. And that's really sad. That's really sad that we've reached this point. And I believe, and I've always told young journalists who ask me these questions, you know, when I used to be a hard-nosed print journalist, just like you, now, of course, I have an opinion, but I will still investigate. And all my investigations are based on the facts that I collect through my investigations. But I tell people all the time, you are not going to be able to tell your audience the truth unless you have yourself have gone to get that information and investigated it. You can't sit behind a desk and pretend to know everything.
No, you're right. And I have an opinion too. And when I ran our newspaper, look, I used to have a line between what was the editorial page and what was the news page, because you really have to, and you're not going to be perfect. But what really turned me off many years ago, many years ago, the New York Times, is that I would look at just maybe 20 or 30 years ago when I first got out as a lawyer and started practicing law. I'm looking at the New York Times and say the Wall Street Journal side by side, you know, the liberal newspaper, the conservative newspaper. All the articles in the New York Times on the news page were laden with political speak and political opinions. And it was like, this is supposed to be on the op-ed page. And that's one of the things I always liked kind of about the Wall Street Journals. They used to have that page down the side where you kind of just get the quick facts and then you could go in if you wanted to read more. And they tended to be more factual in their news section. I'm saying they're not perfect. They have an opinion. You have an opinion. But at least I used to try to put the news out. And to be honest with you, one of my reason I've had such a struggle and such an odyssey in politics as a Republican, even though I'm a conservative Republican, is when I had my newspaper, in my region, the Republicans were in control and some of them were corrupt. And I called them out. And they're like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that in your newspaper. But you have to do that. You have to go to the meetings and see the facts and tell the story. And I took a lot of heat for that, which is why I was never endorsed by my local Republican Party until I actually was a member of Congress. And I'd run for the state assembly and got into Congress. And, you know, it's interesting. I mean, I've always had a struggle. And in fact, I had to defeat the county Republican chairman to even get into the state assembly. But I really tried to stand. It was, again, my journalism background, trying to stand up for what's right, being a lawyer, doing kind of what you do. I go to court and I advocate for people. I've been helping this Native American family for, since 2004. I do it for free. It costs me money. I've had millions spent against me by the casino tribes and the casino Indians, even though a lot of them aren't even really Native Americans. And, you know, there's this narrative out there from the legacy media and from everybody around, oh, she's anti-Indian, she's anti-Native American. But it's like, I've given my life to this family and this guy to protect their rights, their culture, their land. And yet I get cast that way. That's how dangerous some of this stuff is. And there's no one telling the truth, because why? This casino owner has all this money to shut up the media, whether it's TV, radio, newspaper. So this is why outlets like yours are so important, because you never really get to hear the real story. And by the way, you can always go to melvinphillipsstory.com and hear all about how I'm trying to help this guy who's really having a struggle with his health. But I just can't quit on it. I mean, the guy just means so much to me, and I can't legally represent him now, but I can advise because the rules in Congress prohibit it. But these are the kinds of people that are unsung heroes, that people that we don't hear about the truth. And that's why, you know, I love to check out your podcast, look at you on Twitter, find out when you're on Fox at night and you're making your hits from the border, and you look like you've just crossed the border and swam across the Rio Grande yourself sometimes.
I do sometimes. Sometimes I think I do. Sometimes I think I do. I mean, you should have seen me when I got back from Guatemala and El Salvador. You would have been like, whoa. I tried to keep it real. I was still wearing my baseball hat. I seem to never have time to do my hair, Claudia. There is just never that extra minute to do my hair. But you brought up a really important.
I'm going to get you a Bills hat though, because we want you to be cheering for the Bills.
Okay, absolutely. I'll wear it. I'll wear the Bills hat. You send it to me.
Josh Allen all the way.
Oh, I will. Nobody can stop me, because once we go live, that's it.
All right,
that's it. I'm wearing the Bills hat, and
we're gonna win the Super Bowl.
Calvin, you guys heard that, Greg? We're gonna get the Bills hat, and then I'm gonna wear it not only on my podcast but on Fox News. But one of the things that you said that I think is, I will. And then I'm going to get a lot of hate mail, right? But that's okay. I'm going to take it. I'll take it. New Yorkers can hate on me. I don't mind. One of the things I wanted to say was important that you brought up is this idea that, you know, people think just because you're a conservative or just because you're a Democrat, that you're going to automatically just buy in to everything that the basic establishment or that the leadership says you have to buy into. And that's not true. And we've seen this from President Trump. You know, let's go back to 2016 when the establishment really turned against Trump, and they've turned against people within their own party. I mean, some people come up to me and say, I feel like the GOP is eating itself. You know, and we've seen that with Democrats as well. But one thing that we have seen in these primaries is that it didn't matter how big the war chest was. That didn't keep those pro-impeachment Republicans from not losing out to Trump-backed challengers. I mean, we saw the establishment just take a huge hit right now.
Yeah, it's a big...
Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's a big issue, and it's important, too, because... I have a lot of Democratic friends who are my friends from college, and my girlfriends, they're Democrats, but they do always say to me, geez, this story with this Native American man and his family that you've been helping, that sounds like something a Democrat would do. I mean, as if Republicans don't have compassion and care, which I think we have it much more so than Democrats, because we actually really want to solve the problem. And I have some Democrats who are wonderful, but sometimes they're naive. You know, you might want to, have passion and care, but if you're not providing the right solutions, you're not going to help these people. You're not going to help the starving children or the suffering people. So, yeah, but I think what's happening in those races is, first of all, some of these candidates have a certain amount of arrogance. And a lot of people, particularly my district, which is very pro-Trump, and a lot of them say, yeah, I don't really like his personality, or I don't like that he, sometimes he's a little bit of a rube, but we love that he's courageous and he's strong and he stands up and he's willing to stand in the breach and take the heat from the other side and really just sort of lay out the facts. I mean, he's a Queens businessman, and it's rough and tumble in New York City. But I think what you're seeing is people know, like watching this J6 committee. I mean, obviously I'm a lawyer. I'm trained on evidence and constitutional issues, but it was just offensive for me to sit there and watch Liz Cheney, claim that she's a constitutionalist and yet allow something like a show trial, Soviet style, happen. I lived in a communist country. I lived in the former Yugoslavia, so I know what that's like. If you disagree with the government, you're in a barren island in the middle of the Adriatic. Even Tito, who the Democrats love to describe as a benevolent dictator, no such thing. Bernie Sanders says, right, we just haven't done socialism right yet. Well, it's never going to be right.
He wants a better bread line, Claudia. He wants a better bread
line. That's perfect.
A better bread line. I want sourdough bread.
And it's hard. It's hard to transition out of that and get people to be inspired and not be dependent on government. And for Liz to sit there and say, it's okay to cherry pick evidence, to not put on all the facts and all the evidence, to deny the defendant or the people being accused of having all the Bill of Rights protected for them, the right to confront witnesses, the right to present evidence, and all those things just don't seem right to anyone who's American and understands our system of government, even a rudimentary understanding. It just seems unfair in anyone who's ever been through the justice system. So I think that she had that working against her, and it just looks all about the Cheneys. It's all about this legacy people who have benefited millions of dollars, someone who's never really grew up in Wyoming. She grew up in Virginia. And all of these impeachers, I mean, some of them were nice people, but I think they reacted in the fog of war and really just got caught up. But that just shows that they don't have a strong understanding of the Constitution, because to be honest with you, I just don't see how anyone, whether you like Trump or not, there was no evidence. President Trump had no evidence, the chance to present witnesses and evidence during that snap impeachment. And so to vote for it, I mean, I don't think any of the Democrats should have voted for it. If I couldn't have done it.
Absolutely.
If they did it to a Democrat, I couldn't have voted for it. And that's where we have to have people that are willing to live up to their oath and willing to have the courage to do that, regardless of party. And I think that's what people don't like, and that's where Trump is willing to go. Common sense things that maybe the people on the far right don't like, or even on the right, he's going, this is a good idea. And then the Democrats, he's pushed them so far left because, Trump is enacting the policies that we like. And so then you see this confusion about that. It's very, this populist type of, governing that he had. And so it's kind of complicated. But look, people don't like to see bashing of our party. And, Mitch McConnell coming out now and saying, we don't have good candidates, we can't win. We have great candidates. He doesn't like Donald Trump, and he doesn't like the fact that there's a threat to his power base and his ability to make money in Washington. I mean, look at the money that's being made. I mean, isn't his
That's
wife?
it. That's it. Congresswoman. That is it. They are both in the same bed. And I'm talking about the establishment Republicans that have had it for a long time, that have been able to line their pockets based on, their careers in Washington, lifelong careers, and the Democrats. That's why they connect. It's like they have a secret room in the back room, like where Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi go back there and try to figure out how they're going to wrangle up all you crazy wild bulls, that are running in every direction. Like, how are we going to get them? How are we going to whip them back into shape to understand? And I think a lot of independents in the country are saying, whoa, wait a minute. We like what's happening here. We are, and they're turning more towards you, more towards, just a whole litany of people. Harriet Hangman, in Wyoming, get rid of Liz Cheney. They don't want that anymore. They don't want Mitch McConnell there. Sorry to say, Mitch McConnell's a brilliant politician. He ran the country, and his political party the way he saw fit during his time. But it's changing times, and the American people are waking up to what they have, and what Trump has referred to, President Trump, as a swamp in Washington that he wants to clean
these
out.
are growing pains of the party, but we've got to expand. You've got to reach out. You've got to, and obviously you see the Hispanic vote coming to us because we have more of the values type voters, and the culture wars of the Democrats have gone so far left that it's just untenable to the average person. But remember, standing up to the status quo, that's something that I did. And while I had a lot of Democrat support, they said, we may not agree with you on 100% of the issues, but we know if we ask you, we're going to get the truth. If we don't want to know the truth, we're not going to ask. And they understood that I was reliable in that way, that I was going to do my facts, I was going to put things together, and I was going to try to come up with solutions-based votes and other issues where I, really looking at the Constitution, looking at practical ways of solving the problem, and looking at ways to help my constituents. But what you're seeing is this: Trump got too close to that core, the core of kind of once people get out of Washington and serving, you get this nice job, you could be an ambassador, or, actually that costs money, or you could be, work for a foreign government, or you could get a job working for one of the many interest groups that lobby Washington. And make a lot of money doing that. And it's always leaning toward whichever party's in power. But I think the worst elements of this, and the embodiment of all this, is Joe Biden. Career politician, very little talent, a history of plagiarism and cheating, and very, the behavior towards Justice Bork, Justice Thomas, of destroying the other side and not talking about real issues. And then all of a sudden, this guy who's just a politician who's enriched himself and his family's enriched themselves at the expense of the taxpayers, all of a sudden is president. And where is he? He's not doing anything about China. He's not doing anything about the border. He's compromised in every way, either because the shadow government behind him is compromised, or he only has this distant memory of the good old days of aw shucks Joe, who's living in a mansion that we're spending $500,000 to build a wall around, but we can't have a completion of the wall down in the southern border. But yet, he's just a fraud on every level. But people are starting to get it. But my question is, who are the 20 or 30% that think Joe Biden is just fine? Are they just the hardcore Democrats that are going to like him no matter what? Who are they?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out who they are as well. And, and when you think about all of the accusations that the Democrats have hurled and continue to hurl at President Trump and all of his supporters, and all of the mess, the weaponization of the FBI, of the DOJ, which is so obvious when you see the raid on Mar-a-Lago, when you see what's happened with Steve Bannon, when you saw what happened with Roger Stone, and then you see the facts as they are laid out. Facts that the Biden family is directly connected to money that was being, pocketed by the Bidens and Hunter Biden from China, from people directly connected to the communist government. And that just kind of disappears. It's like the DOJ is not investigating that. That's a two-tiered justice system, Claudia.
Oh, yeah.
That's a two-tiered. That's why Americans are angry.
Where are these 51 former intelligence agents who all said that Hunter Biden's laptop was a clear case of Russian disinformation? And it turns out, oh, no, it wasn't. It's all true. And we get to have this litany of disgusting photos and interactions. And and proof that actually Joe Biden did know what was going on with Hunter Biden, with China, with 10% for the big guy. Where's the raid? Where's the investigation on this? And, a couple things that this thing with President Trump, I actually had dinner with him with a group of Republicans the day after the raid on Mar-a-Lago. And, he was pretty chipper that day. But think about it. He was telling us they were going through Melania's clothes. And we didn't even know at that time that they took his passports. But think about this. I looked into this. This judge, which I don't know why people aren't talking about. His lawyers maybe will bring this up and when they're bringing their Fourth Amendment case. But this judge recused himself under the bias and prejudice statute in June because Trump is suing Hillary Clinton under the RICO statute, the Racketeering and Corrupt Organizations Act.
Right.
She's suing him. And this guy said, oh, no, I'm too biased and prejudiced because of some of the public statements I've made about Donald Trump. Oh, so now I can't hear cases with Donald Trump. So he signs an extraordinary warrant, extraordinarily broad. They're slow walking the redaction and whether we can see what's in this. And we're finding out that this is all just one more game. It's like the fourth impeachment. They can't impeach him because he's not in office. So we did 2 phony impeachments. Then we went after him, with this raid. We also went after him with the J6 committee, which, by the way, is interesting. The J6 committee re-ups like a perpetual committee whenever they need it. How is that constitutional? How is that within our government and fairness? And I think people are starting to see that. Only the hardened anti-Trumpers, like the Liz Cheneys and some of the hardcore Democrats are really clinging to this. But Americans see the unfairness. And then the Democrats, and to allude to what you're saying, is they spin this, all of a sudden, well, you people said you were against defunding the police. What about the FBI? I was like, the FBI is an executive agency of appointees, politically charged, and they have a history of being that way. We're talking about police across our nation, local sheriffs, local police who get elected to office. This is very different than a politicized FBI. And so the Democrats are trying to spin that. I mean, it really looks desperate. And I think we're in a really tough time. But that's the real distinction between when you see them spinning that aspect of it.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. We look forward to having you on the show again really soon to talk about that. I have so much respect for you and how much you give back to our nation. You're a true patriot, and I'm grateful to call you my friend. Talk to you soon.
Great to talk to you.
Hey, before I let you guys go, I don't know if you've all seen this story or if it's just going to start growing by the time you listen to me, but it's about the daughter of it's called The Daughter of Putin's Brain, Ideologist, Killed in a Car Blast. This is from the AP. When I saw it over the weekend, I was just like, I was blown away, literally. Literally, don't take that. I really was blown away, although she was really blown away. This is a bizarre story. She's the daughter of a Russian nationalist ideologist who is often referred to as Putin's brain. There was a bomb put in her car, and it exploded on the outskirts of Moscow. Right now, the investigative committee branch for the Moscow region said Saturday night that the blast was caused by a bomb planted in the SUV driven by Daria Dugina. She is 29 years old and was the daughter of Alexander Dugin, a prominent proponent of the Russia world concept ideology and a vehement supporter of Russia's sending troops into Ukraine. So I want you to think about that. So he is a vehement supporter of Russia sending troops into Ukraine. His daughter, 29-year-old daughter, is blown up. He's a great friend of Vladimir Putin. And I got to tell you, I'm very, very concerned because right now Russia is definitely saber rattling. There is a lot of talk that Ukraine is going to pay the price for this, and the Russians are going to target Ukraine because of her death. I got to tell you, we don't know if this was the Ukrainians. We don't know if this was somebody else. There are a lot of issues in Russia right now, and somebody could have been using Ukraine in an effort to target her. Maybe there's a proxy issue here where it could even be another adversary that targets, a friend of Vladimir Putin's family and hopes that the war will be exacerbated and get bigger in Ukraine. I mean, we just have no idea. Obviously, U.S. intelligence is on this, as well as the rest of the world's intelligence agencies, I imagine. And there's a lot of tension right now because this could definitely escalate the war in Ukraine. It could get far worse. And we know all what happens when nuclear nations start to react. And there's a lot of concern over the nuclear plant right now in Ukraine. So I think we need to keep our eyes there. We need to keep watching what's going on, because even though we're not directly involved in this, we are indirectly involved in this fight in Ukraine, and it could affect us eventually here in the U.S. Yes, it's a national security issue, and believe me, I think things are going to get a whole lot worse before they get better. Okay, folks, remember to follow me on Twitter at Sara Carter DC and on Instagram at S Carter DC. That's Instagram at S Carter DC. God bless you. God bless our nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.